about to start Midnight Tides by Steven Erikson. I didn't plan an 8 or 9 month break between books of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, but here's what happened. Those of you that were perhaps waiting for this in March, that's when I was originally going to read this. I read House of Chains back in November, and I like reading Malazan when I'm off work because it just gives me time to just sit and digest, and I can read in smaller chunks, and it doesn't overwhelm like an entire month. Well, I was going to read during spring break in March, but I was leading a read-along of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams, beginning of the year. And the second book, Stone of Farewell, that I read in February, honestly, it kind of broke me. And it sapped all my interest in epic fantasy. So I had to read Green Angel Tower because of this read-along in March, and I just couldn't stomach the thought of two huge, big fantasy books at the same time. So I decided to just push off Midnight Tides to the summer. Here we are, it's July. It's July 3rd. I figure this will probably take a week or more, but I have so little on the calendar in the next 2 weeks that I have time to read. I've really loved getting back into Malazan. The second, third, and fourth books were all just fantastic books for me. House of Chains, I really enjoyed. I think at this point, when I finished House of Chains, the recency bias, it was my favorite, but I think Dead House Gates is my favorite at this point, but I do love books 2 and 3 and 4 in the series. Now, Midnight Tides, I know, begins kind of a new story. It's a different continent. And if I understand correctly, it's actually before Gardens of the Moon in like the chronology. So this is kind of the first one that happens in the chronology. There's only one character that I noticed. I read through the Dramatis Personae and I noticed Troll in there. So there is one character. So I guess, I remember he was cast out. So maybe that we'll get to see that in this book. But he's the only character that's a repeat from any of the other books. So it'll be like a new start. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm glad I know that going in because I know Matt mentioned when we had chatted about it on the pub last week that he wasn't happy when he found out that it was yet another, like a third beginning of this series. But I am looking forward to getting back into Malazan. My break of 8 or 9 months is not indicative of how much that I have been enjoying the series up to this point. My strategy remains the same with this. I just kind of roll with it. I don't take notes or anything like that. When I originally did these, I was taking notes and I was consulting the spreadsheet, the slideshow and all of that, and I'm not going to do any of that. But the only thing that I do differently in reading Malazan, besides when I schedule it, is at least starting out is I'll only read an hour at a time. So like this afternoon, I want to read. I'll probably read for like 2 hours this afternoon, but I'll either read Malazan and then some short stories, or maybe I'll even watch an episode of television, listen to some music, something like that. And that's going to be my strategy going forward is I'll read just in 1 hour chunks. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe at some point, just like in House of Chains, I abandoned that because I just didn't want to stop after an hour. But that's how I'll start initially. But looking forward to getting back in. I'll try to do more shorter updates with this than some of the last vlog posts. But most likely, these will be kind of spoilerish going forward. I'll let you know at the beginning of my next vlog entry or the one after that where it is spoilers, so that if some of you do want to see some initial things that are spoiler free, but I think most of the people that watch these, frankly, are people that love the series, want to see somebody experiencing the series. So I'll probably be talking about some details at some point in this video, but I'm excited to get started. I'm going to go make a cup of coffee, sit down, and start Midnight Tides. So it's still Thursday. I read the first 3 chapters, the prologue and the first 3 chapters. I'm probably going to read a little bit more, but I wanted to do a little bit of an update of kind of where I am, just initial stages. I read a little bit more today than I had expected because we got really bad thunderstorms came through. So like I had yard work to do and oh well, I couldn't do it. It was great. I could just sit and read. I still did like an hour and then I did some other stuff, then I did an hour, and now I'm kind of on my 3rd reading session of the day. But anyway, there's more of a learning curve here than anything since, I think, the first book, actually. I feel like Dead House Gates was easy to ease into. even though it was a new start, just because it was pretty clear what was going on, which was just this big conquest, and then like the stuff with Fellison was easy to understand. There's a bigger learning curve here. There's a lot of like proper names that I just don't get the references that I'm sure eventually they'll all start to become clearer, but there's just a lot of names of not just characters but things and entities and things like that that are just a bit unclear at this point what they are. Troll has made it a little bit grounding because I know that character, and I like kind of where I left it at the end of chapter 3. He and his two brothers, his older brother and his younger brother, they were kind of investigating where this warren was, but then they're going to go on a quest, it sounds like. So that's kind of interesting. The other kind of, a lot of the other plot elements are a little unclear right now as far as what's going on, but most of that was only in the bulk of one chapter, because most of chapter 1 and 3 were kind of following Troll. And then chapter 2, some other things are going on. So maybe in the next chapter that I read, some of those other things will become clear. But the good side of it is just I'm used to Erikson's writing, so even though there's just like a lot of, like I said, proper names that I don't know who they are, what they are, you know, I don't feel like anxious or worried or, you know, I don't know if I'm coming up with the best adjective for it, but how I used to feel early on in the series when I didn't understand something. I don't have any of that, just because I trust and know that it's probably going to go to a place that's where it's supposed to go. Anyway, I just wanted to do an update. I'm going to read a little bit more tonight. I'll probably do an update tomorrow when I get to the end of book 1, because I think that's around page 150. So I'll get to that sometime tomorrow, and then we'll just see how it's going at that point. Hey everyone, I'm setting up my camera for another video, so I figured why not just shoot a vlog post today for Midnight Tides. It's Friday morning. I actually finished book 1 last night, which is surprising. I ended up reading almost 4 hours yesterday, so obviously I'm enjoying it quite a bit. One thing I've liked how the story has kind of emerged into just like 2 of the main plots are kind of following a group of brothers, which I kind of like that. That's just an interesting way of, you know, breaking the plot down. I always like familial relationships, and I think it's a good thing to see here. I especially like the dynamic with Troll and Fear and Roulade, and I'm very curious to see whether Troll's perspective on Roulade is correct or not. Because it seems like his brother is not bothered by it. So either his brother is just being standoffish for some reason, or he's just maybe a little naive or something with it. But I'm curious to see where that goes. And especially when there's going to be 6 of them that are kind of on this quest, just to see where they end up going as part of this quest that's been handed to them. So I'm just curious to see where that goes. So I'm interested in that quite a bit. I liked kind of the things that were happening in that city with Tehol and the 3 kind of mercenary women with him. There's some interesting things going on. He's a very intelligent character, so I'm interested to see where that goes. Some other things that I'm enjoying is I've definitely laughed more in this first book of this, you know, this Malazan book than anything else that I've read by him so far. Erikson isn't an author that I think of as like a humor or comedy author, maybe because it's some dark stuff, and the bulk of everything so far has been like a lot of battles and things like that. But I've really enjoyed that aspect of it. The thing with, I just forgot his name, I can almost picture it, the slave who has the Wyval, is it Wyval blood? And he's kind of having these other things happen to him. I'm very curious to see where that goes. Because I'm thinking that might be important based on maybe what happened in the prologue. It's interesting, this is the first book that I've read, just speaking of the prologue, where I think about the prologue. I realized House of Chains, after I had read the whole book, I had 100% forgotten the prologue. And I think that's been more the case for me with these stories. So I've been trying to just think about it, and it may be something I've heard people say that they'll reread the prologue as they're reading the book. So maybe I'll do that as well. But I'm definitely enjoying this book quite a bit. I feel settled in. This is the first time that I felt kind of settled into a book, with maybe the exception of House of Chains, of a Malazan book early on, because there's so much thrown at you, and there was a lot thrown out at the very beginning of this book one of Midnight Tides, especially in terms of just like all the proper names. You're learning all the different tribes and all the different people and all the different titles and things like that. Like I complained on the Discord about the title Fanad, which is basically a captain, and how it's thrown around, so it's very unclear when they're using the word captain, because it could be one of like 5 people in one scene, and they're saying Fanad this, Fanad that, and it's really, kind of confusing to get used to. So that aside, I feel just I'm kind of settled into this story a lot earlier than the other ones, which is great. Maybe I'm just used to Erikson's style of storytelling, and knowing that this is I'm past the point where I'm going to be like DNFing any of these books or anything like that. So I guess there's none of that in the back of my mind, like, can I handle this type of thing with Malazan? But anyway, I'm looking forward to continuing today. I don't know if I'll be able to read as much today as I did yesterday. 150 pages in one day was quite a bit. We'll see. I imagine I'll be able to knock back about 100 pages today. So next update, I won't have the mic and the nice lighting. So back to kind of normal vlog entries after. Hey, just a quick update. I've read 2 chapters so far. Probably going to read at least one more tonight. There was this big prophecy with the Feather Witch. I have no idea what's going on. That's really the only reason I turned this on. The whole Udanos and what's going on with the Feather Witch, I have no idea what's going on with that. So I'm sure it'll be revealed, but I just had to share that. So it's Saturday night. I just finished book 2. I'm really enjoying Midnight Tides. The first thing that, as I've just been thinking about this today, I've read a little bit this afternoon, and then just one last chapter to finish book 2 tonight. One thing I'm really liking is the lack of military fantasy. Now, I know that's about to change because it looks like we're going to go to war here. But when I went into Malazan, that was my biggest concern with this series, is that, there's a lot of military fantasy. That's not really my thing. But I was assured by so many veterans that have read the series, that there's so much more. And that's true. What I've loved about this series most is really the vast world building. I really like the writing. I like the plotting. It's sometimes slow, but the endings of all of these books have been just tremendous. I like just kind of all the themes that make you just think about it when I'm not reading it, which, isn't always common in a lot of books. But the military stuff I've liked. It's not my favorite, but this book hasn't had any, really. So I've really enjoyed that. It's just kind of been a fantasy story. So some specific things I like. So I don't like Roulade, but I like where the story's going. I liked the whole scene as they go into the snow and they get the sword, and as they're coming back, Troll, and all of these battles where he's fighting these wolves and everything. I enjoyed all of that. Never liked Roulade, and now he's the Emperor. And what's interesting, when I was initially thinking about, because I read kind of that chapter yesterday, and then this morning as I was just kind of puttering around the house, just thinking about the book, one of the things I was thinking about was the scene with the crippled god. And, I was kind of liking the scene, the way the crippled god was working with Roulade, and then I was thinking, well, isn't he a bad guy? And then I just remember this is Malazan. There's no good guys. There's bad guys. There's just people. So, but I don't like Roulade. So we'll see where that goes. I guess because Troll is one of the few characters, or maybe the only character that's kind of from the previous books that I kind of trust him a little bit more. And, Troll doesn't like Roulade. And then at the end, Roulade kind of, stealing the Empress, and the Empress not wanting to be, given to the younger brother and all of that. So, definitely don't like him. I love Taeho and Bug. Their dynamic is awesome. And there's so much just levity and humor in there. I think I might have mentioned in one of these earlier vlog posts that I have laughed out loud more in this book than like all the previous Malazan books combined, and that continues. And it's usually with the scenes with them. Just the dialogue is so funny, and they're just certainly the pair. And then I love the thief who's dead, Shark, I think her name is. What a really interesting character in the scene where they pull her from the brothel. I mean, or the temple they call it, but you know, that was quite good. I'm just curious to see what exactly is going on there, because it seems like he's trying to get an economic stranglehold there. So I don't know what the end goal is here for that storyline. Interesting to see where the Kettle storyline goes as well. You know, another character that's kind of dead but not dead. Let's see, Udanos, I really like that character, so I'm curious what's going on with him. I mean, I liked him initially. I forgot his name in one of the earlier vlog posts, but he's firmly in my brain at this point. But yeah, I'm really into it. I can see why, you know, just talking with people, it seems like this is also one of the books that people call their favorite. It seems like the four that I've heard most as people's favorites are Dead House Gates, Memories of Ice, Midnight Tides, and The Crippled God. So, you know, I'm curious to see where this goes. I mean, I'm at book 2. It's not quite halfway, at least with the page counts. Haven't quite gotten over the halfway point. But 3 days in, I'm really enjoying it. It'll probably be a 6 or 7 day book for me. But I'll get back at it tomorrow and give you another update. So Sunday night, I've read, I think 4 chapters today. I just finished chapter 15. One really interesting scene with Udanos and the Feather Witch in a different world with this kid that's Udanos' son with the woman with the draconian blood. I don't remember her name. Long name begins with an M. There was some interesting world building in there, and it made me really think about that. That's still the one aspect of Malazan that I'm struggling with, is that I don't understand the big picture at all. There are, you know, we have like elder gods, we got minor gods, we got ascendants, we got Talani Moss, we got all of these different like races and creatures, and, you know, now we're on a 3rd continent, and it's just like, 5 books in, you would think that it would be clear as to what the big picture of the story is about. And I don't feel that. I would assume at some points it'll become clear and it'll be great. But besides that, I'm enjoying it. I mean, we got more military fantasy in this section, which isn't my favorite, but there's enough in there interspersed, and there's enough like character stuff, like I love all the stuff with Troll. I just really like that character quite a bit. And then, of course, anytime we get Tejo and Bug, they're just, I don't know, I love those chapters, or even portions of chapters. So it'll be interesting to see what he's doing in the city and how that will affect kind of the war efforts, for lack of a better term. And some powerful magic in this last chapter, too, was interesting. And then the reveal where Burra had hung himself, that was kind of unexpected, but didn't really know that character deeply anyway. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about kind of that big picture thing that is kind of bothering me just a little bit. But overall, I think the book itself, I mean, I would say part of what I read today is a little slower. I think all the books have had slower moments, but this one, at least so far, has had the least amount of them. I think the pacing is really strong in this one, and it's just the writing just flows. So I'm still enjoying it. I'm going to read probably one or two more chapters tonight, and then I'll update you sometime tomorrow. So I just finished book 3. It's Monday night, and book 3 felt a little long, to be honest. It's jumping around a little bit. I'm really anxious just to see how everything concludes. The biggest thing I'm looking forward to seeing is, at this point, is what's going on with kind of like the undead, especially the ones with the around the Azeth house. That's been intriguing from the start, but especially the last couple scenes that we've had with them, that's become more interesting. And then even like the wraiths, and then that demon that like Troll kind of freed. I'm very curious to see where that's going too. So the storylines I'm liking the most. I'm liking the Troll storyline the most. Just seeing him, I mean, almost openly defiant with his not liking what's going on with Rulad. I don't know if I mentioned in the last blog post or if I just put it on the Discord, but I had hoped that Rulad was dead and would stay dead, but apparently he's not. But then Troll was very, just had a very good thought of like, hey, he might be dead, but if he keeps dying, he's going to kind of go insane. And we're kind of seeing that a little bit. So I'm curious what's going on with that. And then just overall, just like the whole thing with what is the cripple god trying to do here? Because he's kind of the puppet master in the background. So I'm curious to see what that is. The very end of book 3, the thing with Saren and the Crimson Guard was really good. I mean, it's just tough to see Saren going through what she's going through, and already kind of has changed a little bit just because of what had happened to her after Buruk had killed himself. So see what's going on with that. I do like the Crimson Guard, and I recognize the name. I think Esselmont wrote a book about them. One of the novels of the Malazan Empire, I think, is about the Crimson Guard. So I think, maybe I'll read a little bit more about them at some point. But I assume, since they're wanting to get Emperor Kalanvet and all that, that they're going to be part of the bigger story. At least I'm assuming. I mean, right now, because it feels like, except for Troll, like none of this ties into the rest of the books, which is fine, because I think it's a good book. I mean, there's times I'm thinking it's my favorite, and then there's times I'm thinking it's like my 4th favorite. So we'll see. Erikson tends to write a hell of an ending, so I'm really curious to see where this goes. I'll probably, again, it's Monday night. I imagine I'll probably read like 2 more hours tonight and then finish it up tomorrow. So I don't know, 1 or 2 more updates, I would guess, until we get to the end. But yeah, we'll see. But again, book 3, I think, dragged a little bit, but nothing nearly as slow as like the second book of Memories of Ice or anything like that. So onward and upward. Coming to the end, I have about 75 pages left, so I'm going to finish it tonight. I'm not going to film my kind of wrap up tonight. I'll wait until tomorrow. If you saw my Memories of Ice vlog, I got to the end and I tried to film it like right after I finished it. And I just kept staring off into space, and like my mind was like Itkovian. And anyway, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to finish it tonight, and then I'll talk about it probably sometime tomorrow morning. But I've really been enjoying it. One thing I really liked about some of the things that I read last night is we got a really good exposition drop explanation of the Warrens and how kind of that works. And I was told when I went into this series that, everything will be explained and you'll get it when you need it. And I think it was, I dare say, genius waiting until the 5th book to give us such a detailed explanation into that. I think had that exposition dropped in the 1st or 2nd book, it may not have had the impact. And learning about it this late in the game, I think was fantastic. So it just even more just earned my trust with this author, that it seemed like he gave it to me at exactly the right time, because I knew kind of how it worked, and I had a decent idea about how just overall they worked, but then getting the kind of the full, complete, mostly complete story about the Warrens and all of that was, I thought it was quite meaningful and quite a significant just little 1.5-page passage in this book. So I guess my struggle at understanding the
big picture of the story, I guess, will be revealed to me later. So, but I do trust the author, and I'm really enjoying this. Again, I'll finish it tonight, and one more update, and I'll kind of summarize my thoughts when I finish this.
Well, I have the camera set up with the backdrop for another video I'm shooting this morning, so I figure I would just finish this vlog by talking here with this setup. So I did finish Midnight Tides last night. I feel like every time I finish one of these Malazan stories, I think that that's my favorite. And I know Dead House Gates was definitely my favorite. When I finished Memories of Ice, I thought it was my favorite. Dead House Gates kind of reemerged. When I finished House of Chains, I thought it was my favorite. Dead House Gates reemerged. I think this is my favorite, but I don't think that Dead House Gates is going to reemerge. The thing I appreciated so much in this was really a tightly written story. And that's one thing I've mentioned, even though I've given 5 stars to the last 4 books in this series. And even though that's been the case, I've said that I don't understand why people don't talk about Erikson being slow, because he does have passages in his books that are slow. And that's been true for pretty much all of them, but this one, it was so brief. It might have been on one little vlog post, and it was more just the staging of kind of the military aspects of it. It wasn't like a whole book. Like even Memories of Ice, like all of book 2 is slow in that story, if you ask me. This was so tight a narrative, and I think for that reason alone, I think it's objectively might be the best written book. The plotting is superb. And I also like that I felt that the depth of character here was more significant, or at least more consistent across the board than in some of the previous installments. I think some of the previous installments, because they were so big, we didn't get maybe a zoomed in approach. And even though there's like 4 pages of dramatis personae at the beginning here, I feel like there were less characters. And because of that, I felt like just the connection to them felt deeper. But even beyond that, Erikson does something that like some of my favorite character writers do so well, like Kay, Hobb, that they're able to give you like a minor character for a very, very brief moment and make you kind of understand them and connect with them kind of almost significantly in many ways. And I think that was on display very well here too. The convergence at the end here, again, it's not as big as the end of like Dead House Gates or Memories of Ice, but I thought it was so the story in general, but the convergence especially at the end, just the plotting was extremely intricate, but it just seemed to just come together just perfectly. And that's one of the other things of this story that I really liked, is there were never too many moments where I was with a storyline where I was just like, can we get on with this and get on to some other storyline or get through this storyline? I didn't really feel that here. I felt that just things coalesced so well and came together so well from beginning to end. So I did take a couple notes that I wanted to, just to make sure that I talk about a couple things. Mainly characters, and so I don't forget any of these. I haven't taken notes on any of these vlog posts before, but I think to wrap this one up, there are some things I just want to talk about, how some of the characters kind of end up at the end. Briss, so he was, kind of a minor character, and we kind of liked him, this King's Champion, but I loved his ending, and I think most of us saw that he was about to drink poison and we're yelling, no, don't do it. And, he went out that way. But even seeing the perspective of, I think, Fear's perspective afterwards, realizing, like, I'm the best swordsman I've ever seen and he would have beat me. I love that kind of moment of enlightenment. And then seeing, I didn't understand the ending where he got pulled away. So if someone can explain that to me, if I'm supposed to understand it, let me know. But recognizing that he was heroic and had died a hero and was taking him off for some reason, I didn't understand that part. But he was a minor character, really. I felt him as a minor character, but I really felt his death keenly. I actually had some empathy for Roulade towards the end of this book, which really surprised me. And he's kind of insane at this moment, but I think it was when Briss had just totally maimed him and he couldn't move, where he just wanted his brothers to just end his misery. And when he said something to the effect of, why he was kind of this little brother, little shit. Like, he just wanted to be part of them. He wanted to be included. And I kind of felt for the character there, which I love when you get a character that's primary villainous. I mean, it's not his fault entirely. I mean, he's a puppet of the crippled god. But I love when characters have just layers to them like that. So I really liked that. And I'm curious to see Emperor Roulade going forward. It's just interesting that this book is set before everything else, but I don't know how. Absolutely have no idea how it's going to tie in with the rest of the series, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I figure I'll learn that. I mentioned in the earlier, I think in an earlier vlog post that I expect that Erikson will reveal that when it's important. So I'm sure that will happen. The end of Fear and Troll's storyline were fantastic. For Fear in particular, because I didn't see throughout the book a lot of depth with him. He seemed like just this follower of an older brother that was just trying to do whatever Roulade said, and I didn't see him almost having a lot of autonomy or a lot of agency. And then at the end, when he just says, I can't do this anymore, and interestingly enough, finds himself going towards Saren's place, which was interesting. There was more to that character than met the eye, and I don't know if maybe I just didn't see the depth of the character, or maybe he just had that light bulb moment at the end where he grew and just had to abandon his brother and everything else. Troll was one of my MVPs in this book. I liked him from beginning to end. I like how his story ended, and I know we see him again because he was in House of Chains, but I really enjoyed his story tremendously, and I love the last interactions with Fear and Troll at the end. That was fantastic. So really enjoyed that. Saren, I loved the understated nature of the end of her story in this book. How she's just alone in her house, and because of the magic with Carlo had helped her get through the horrible trauma she had been through, that she was just in kind of this quiet moment and not knowing to know what happens next, and then the knock on the door. So we can see that, she's going to go forward. So I kind of liked that. I guess it was just kind of symbolic, where she had reverted into herself and then at the end decided to kind of rejoin humanity in many ways. But I liked her character arc for sure. I hope we see Shirk and the Crimson Guard and everybody else that went on that ship, because I really like those characters. I know that there's an Esselmont book with the Crimson Guard in the title, so I'm pretty confident that we will see those characters. But I hope that we see that storyline, because that's one of the things with Malazan is you don't know when a storyline is just kind of done because of the nature. This is not we follow this group of characters through 10 books. People are in and out of the story. So I hope we see them again, because I liked Shirk a lot. I love how she just don't make me laugh. Love the aspect of her. And I look forward to seeing how that goes. And I love, just speaking of Crimson Guard, the battle with Iron Hands. Is that his name? I'm horrible with names. And Ablala, when he jumped in and they're fighting the Toblakai, I mean, that was a fantastic scene. And I love highly competent characters. So characters like this, these Avowed, I don't know what that means at this point, but I love how these Avowed are very, very strong characters. So I hope to see them again, and I look forward to hopefully seeing them again, at least in Esselmont's book. I don't know if we'll see them in the Malazan Book of the Fallen again, but I hope that we do. And then, I mean, I got to end with, like my favorites in the story were Tehol and Bug from the beginning. And I started to suspect that there was more to Bug that met the eye when he was doing his own thing. And then the scene where he reveals that he's male, this elder god, and he just basically screams, and like 13 or 14 of these eater just implode. I mean, incredible. I mean, that was so good. And then I loved at the end how when they get to the end of the conversation, Tehol and Bug, that, Bug is telling Tehol, when you're thousands of years old, you kind of get bored, you don't want to live on, and just his friendship with him, he was finding joy in life again. And I loved that. And then I loved even more the reveal at the end, how he didn't wipe Tehol's memory. He let him keep that. So love those characters. Oh, I hope we get them, because they were outstanding. I love their banter. They brought a lot of great comic relief, but you see at the end that there was just a great bond between these two characters. And it also showed a little bit more, I think, this book with, especially the epilogue, where Male/Bug is going to just beat the hell out of the crippled god. I'm happy for that. But you start to see a little bit more, I think, of big picture, which again, I'm still kind of in the dark, but I have a lot of trust right now with the author because of really one of the smaller scenes, the scene where I think it was Saren was explaining how the Warrens work. Like that scene alone, giving me that information when I needed it most, just shows me that, okay, I'll understand the Elder Gods and the Ascendants and all these other things when I need to understand them. So, a home run of a book. I really enjoyed Midnight Tides. I think it is my favorite. I think it will remain my favorite, and it's definitely one of my favorite books I've read this year. So probably a strong contender for my book of the year, but I really loved Midnight Tides. So going forward, I will be reading, I'm going to read Knight of Knives by Ian C. Esselman. I've had several people tell me that reading that between Midnight Tides and The Bone Hunters is a good idea. So I will be reading Knight of Knives in October, and then I will be reading The Bone Hunters during Thanksgiving week. So the last week of November, I'll be reading The Bone Hunters. And so I'll do a vlog. I won't do a vlog for Knight of Knives, I don't think, but I'll definitely do a vlog for The Bone Hunters, and that is something I'll post probably in December. But hey, if you stuck around this far, just let me know. Let's talk Malazan. I'm so excited going forward in this series. I'm kind of at the midway point. I don't think I'm at the midway point by page count, but I'm midway point by volume count. So I'm so glad that after initially DNFing Memories of Ice that I allowed myself to come back, because I'm wholly invested in this series right now and can't wait to continue. Hey, if you like this vlog, let me know. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Twitter, Goodreads, and the Fireside Discord. I'd love to interact with you there. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.